What's up, listeners? It's Andrea. Today, Riker doesn't eat a penis fruit. Wesley is adorable, and we ask the question, how cold is absolute zero? Come nerd out with us.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Today we're talking about Season 3, Episode 24, entitled Ménage à Troi. This episode was written by Fred Bronson and Susan Sackett and directed by Robert Legato. In a complete throwback to Season 1 quality storytelling, Lwaxana Troi spurns the advances of a Ferengi daemon, so he decides to kidnap both Trois and Riker while they're on shore leave and keep them hostage. He should have just kept Lwaxana and Deanna at the end, so we didn't have to deal with them anymore. Just like return Riker and keep it moving, Daemon. Just keep it moving. I'm going to tell you right now, I was angry watching this because Netflix only lets you do 1.5x as the fastest fucking setting. I was like, where's 3x? Where Netflix?
Well, and the other reason to be mad is just, we talk a lot about the writing of women in this show. And this episode is, again, a throwback to Season 1 as far as how women are so obviously just a plaything. And they kind of sugarcoated it with, oh, but this is the Ferengi and that's why it's like a different culture or whatever. But no, because the behaviors of Lwaxana were just so unacceptable on so many levels that it was like, yeah, you can't really say like it's the weird aliens coming in and making everything like awful. Like, no, it's the characters that you've already created.
You're right. Like if it was the drunk virus again, then maybe we could be like, well, she was under the influence. Her actions were her own. It was just, all of this was terrible. All of it. This episode gave me, because of the way that the women were written, throwbacks to Code of Honor. It gave me throwbacks to Justice also, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Before we do you have any other initial thoughts before we jump in?
Oh, yeah, those are my initial thoughts. I was just sharing that
okay.
This episode was trash. Yeah, so my initial thoughts.
D minus, you guys.
My initial thoughts were similar to last week. Last week, I started the episode of Sarek by saying, well, here comes a mountain of suck. That's what I thought when I hit play. And it actually didn't suck. It just wasn't good. Yeah. This week, I thought to myself, well, here comes an avalanche of suck. And I was correct.
You weren't wrong.
No,
you weren't wrong, Shereese. This episode was like, when you throw garbage away in your house and maybe you go away for the weekend and you forget to take the trash out before you leave. So then you come back a couple days later and the whole house just reeks of like bad garbage. That was this episode.
100%.
It was like
Chinese
5
food
day
in the trash
old.
can.
Yes. Yes. It was any kind of takeout food from anywhere in the trash can for 5 days. I was like, this is the worst. And I haven't felt this outrage since Season 1.
Yeah. And the only thing good about this episode, which actually was great about this episode, was Lwaxana's clothes. But she always slays when it comes to her outfits. And so I was eating that up, but everything else going on, I could have hard passed on all the rest of the episode.
Lwaxana understood the assignment, Shereese. She fucking brought the outfits. The only outfit I absolutely hated was the one she was wearing on Beta Z at the picnic. We'll get into. But everything else was just, it had bad bitch written all over it. And I was loving that. I was loving it. All right. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. So the episode opens with this closing reception to some trade conference that has just finished on Beta Z. And Picard is like, the Ferengi for the first time have participated in this conference. And it is with, a lot of reluctance that I've let them on the ship. And even during this conference, when Picard and Riker are talking to the head Beta Z who ran this conference, they were just talking just a mountain of shit about the Ferengi and how they're like unwanted. And I was like, wow, this just screams of so much racism. I mean, I understand that the writers wrote the Ferengi to be these like unsavory characters, but damn, you guys, like they just went in hard.
They're super mean girls about it.
They were. Couple of things. I was doing some little eye in the sky type stuff to kind of see if I could spot any little Easter eggs or whatever. And I did. I got some Code of Honor vibes because of the way the women were written. And Yarina's cat suit was in the background of this episode. Somebody was just walking by wearing this. Yes. There was also a Zach Dorn in the background. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not.
It was the same outfit that what the fuck is his name was wearing in Peak Performance, the Stratagema guy, Kohlrabi. Uh-huh. Yeah. I was like, hey, you guys. Yeah. This woman was wearing the cat suit. She didn't have the matching headband, but the Yarina's outfit walked right by the screen.
Wow.
Like, hey.
Yeah, I missed all the nuances because I was like, let's move it along. One thing,
Shereese, it's hard to watch this episode and catch stuff because our eye rolls are going everywhere. So they're anywhere but the screen.
Correct. That was the challenge. It was the massive eye rolls was making it hard to like look at the screen. But I did notice that that Data starts doing this like geek spiral that he does all the time, where he talks about how Betazoids cannot read Ferengi's minds. And I did not remember that at all. And I was like, what? That's kind of cool. So that sets up the whole episode because Damon Togg wants Lwaxana, not just because she's a fascinating female, but because she can read minds, because he thinks that's going to make her a great negotiating piece in, with his enemies or whatever, because she can read minds. But she can't read Ferengi minds. So I guess only when dealing with other cultures. I don't know. This was just stupid. Everything about it was stupid.
Just dumb.
But it was interesting. The idea that the Betazoids cannot read Ferengi's minds, because just in general, that gives an idea that there's limitations to their powers, which I thought was fascinating.
Yes. Did you notice that when Data went into his geek spiral, the main Betazoid guy was like, oh, and I thought, you cannot read Data either for obvious reasons.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So I was like, did you just forget he was there? Like he looked startled and alarmed.
Yeah, probably.
Like, this is, He was like, oh, what are you doing here?
He was also standing awkwardly in that conversation. Like he wasn't really a part of it. So I could also see why that would be scary. Like you just thought this dude was passing by because him and Picard are having their own thing and Data's just like a fly on the wall. And then he jumps in and it's like, whoa, were you listening to us the whole time?
Yeah.
I thought that was really awkward the way I think just like the placement of the actors in that scene was weird, but like, honestly, the least of my concerns with this whole trash can fire of an episode. But I just thought like, okay, this is weird. And like, these guys are kind of being mean. And also, Betazoids can't read Ferengi's minds.
Yeah, that is cool.
Picard is also irritated with Data. And now we're on to Lwaxana and Deanna having the most awkward dinner in the history of dinners. Next to the one that Picard had with Lwaxana, which was also the most awkward dinner of all dinners.
That was like that was awkward for sexual assault reasons. This is awkward just because Lwaxana is stuffing her face like there's no tomorrow, just eating her heart out, literally. And I had a thought that when actors are eating in a scene, that scene is shot many, many different times over a span of many, many, many hours or days. So when you're eating in one scene, you need to be eating in another. Poor Majel Barrett must have just had like a spit bucket or something right next to her because the woman was just putting food away like a dump truck. I was like, holy shit.
I think so, because a lot of, it didn't seem like she was eating a lot to me, but I guess maybe I didn't notice that. But I do think I have heard actors say that they pretend to eat whenever there's eating scenes, or they pretend to drink whenever there's scenes where they're supposed to drink something, just because for that reason that you have to keep doing this over and over and over and over and over for hours. And with her dress, with Lwaxana's dress, there's no way she was eating any of that food because that dress was corseted. It was form fitting. It was gorgeous.
It was.
So, yeah, there's no way she was able to actually eat the food in front of her.
Yes, I totally agree. Majel Barrett wouldn't have been able to like put on an ounce for that dress. I do think that dress was really stunning, and especially because it was floor length. It had full sleeves. And it had a cutout just above the chest, or like on her chest above her breasts. And I really love creative cutouts. You know, I think there is a time and a place for a high slit, low cut, backless, strapless, mini, whatever, right? There's a place for that. But I think if you're going to show skin, I think it's really, really cool to do it in kind of like these creative ways where it's like, your back is covered, your arms are covered, your legs, everything's covered except for this one little like cutout that's like asymmetrical. And I know how much you love an asymmetry.
Mm-hmm.
It was so cool. I loved it. I really loved that dress. That was super
and
rad on her.
Loxana has had a dress before that had the back out, completely out, and
Mhm.
the scoop went all the way down. And
Yep.
it was gorgeous. Like I literally can't complain. She slays. She slays. So that was fun to just stare at her outfit. But the conversation going on while I was staring at her outfit was just so uncomfortable. She's talking to Troi. She's talking to Deanna, who I will call Troi like I always do.
Yep.
And I'll never call Loxana Troi. I always call her Loxana.
No. You know what? I did the same thing. I was like, Loxana's talking to Troi. And I was like, wait a minute.
Right. Who calls her Deanna? Nobody.
Nobody.
I guess Riker. So they're talking, and basically Loxana is speaking telepathically and kind of just, criticizing her daughter, as she's ought to do, about why she's not married with kids. Which I can definitely relate to that conversation, because when I was in my 20s, that conversation came up a lot. Now that I'm almost in my 40s, that conversation has not been going on for quite some time. I think a lot of people have given up hope, and I'm quite okay with that, because family get-togethers were just like a little painful for people to be like, when are you going to do this? And I'm like, whenever I get around to it, like so one of the pressures that is the origin of this tradition of women have to get married and have babies really early is it comes from the patriarchy of women being property. You don't own anything. You're not anything. The only value you have is in being a mother and a wife, right? So you have to get married and have babies as soon as possible in order to have value in society. That's no longer the case, at least not in America, not in 2021. So, and it hasn't been the case for quite some time. There's no reason to do. The second pressure is kind of like a biological pressure of, I want to have babies before, the DNA in my eggs starts getting all wonky and my kids come out not the way I wanted them to. And which can happen at any age, but the risk increases with age. So that's kind of the other pressure. Now, I have always wanted to adopt kids, so that pressure is kind of gone as well, where I don't have to like hurry up before my eggs go bad. Like I don't have to do that. Yeah. And so just kind of hearing Troi being like, Mom, like I'm happy doing what I'm doing. It's just it touches a sore spot with me. Thankfully, my mom was never like that. She never asked me that question her whole entire life, and she could care less.
I called my mom Loxana Troi all the time, but she is the opposite of Loxana in this space. She's like, she has never in my life asked me, when are you going to have kids? She's never in my life asked me, when are you going to get married? Never. And I appreciate the shit out of that, because I cannot imagine. Loxana was telling Deanna, think of your future. Think of my future. Bitch, you had your kids. It's not. Well,
she's talking about her grandkids. She's talking about her legacy, but like,
I get that, but like, listen,
it's her life.
Yes, it's her life. This is like when mothers hyper control like their daughter's wedding. It's like, you had your wedding.
Yes.
Right. Which luckily my mom didn't do that either, but you had your wedding.
And
why are you trying to control what everybody's? Yeah. This is not about you, Loxana. This is not about you, girl.
So yeah, it's really painful because Loxana says, and I believe this of all, good-hearted parents who criticize their kids and try to force them into getting married and having babies, is that, she really just wants her to be happy. And that's what it comes down to. And I think that's what all good parents want for their kids. The challenge is her definition of happy is married with kids. And that's not the same definition as Troi. And she's not able to understand that or respect that. I mean, she can't even get to a place where she's like, you know what? I don't get it. Work doesn't make me happy like that. Work doesn't satisfy me deeply like that. I don't understand how you can be satisfied without a husband and kids. But if that is what lights you up, then I'm happy for you. Like, she wasn't able to go there, which is what makes her, really hard to be around. So this is going on, and Riker comes to kind of save the day and takes Troi off to the bar to just be like, oh my gosh, thank you. Give me a break from this woman. Yes. And like, what a sweet boy. And of course, Loxana is just like, I love Riker because he loves my daughter, and you guys should get married or whatever. Even though last time we saw her, she was trying to marry him. Yeah. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. And then Damon Cog sits down and is like, I want to possess you, basically. He's trying to tell her he wants to own her as property, because that's still how things roll in the Ferengi culture, apparently. And he wants her to be not only his mate, I guess, but also his like business partner. And she shuts him down hard. She shuts him down hard and just like humiliates him in front of the whole entire group and storms off.
Mm-hmm.
And that just makes him want her more. And you're like, ugh, can the episode be over now? By the way, guys, this is about 5 minutes in. And you're just like, make it stop. We're
like at the 2.5 minute mark. I was like, oh, there's just so much left. I will say one of the Ferengi is played by Ethan Phillips, who you may know as Neelix.
Yeah. You know, every time
I can't not see him as Neelix. I can't.
Yeah. Every time I hear, because his voice is so distinctive.
Yes.
So like the second he opened his mouth, I was like, oh, it's Neelix. And he's actually played a few characters in Trek. And he's played characters in things that are not Trek. But the second I hear his voice, even without seeing his face, I'm like, oh, it's Neelix. Like I know him anywhere.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was kind of fun to see him as a Ferengi. I feel like he might come back in another episode as a Ferengi as well. But it's kind of fun to see him as a Ferengi because he goes on to become a Talaxian, which is so cool because their makeup is really intense.
Yeah.
If you didn't recognize his voice, you wouldn't know it's the same actor.
Cool to see him as a Ferengi. Yeah, but those Ferengi get chewed up and spit out by Lwaxana. And the next thing we see, she has summoned Deanna to her quarters and she's trying to get her to settle down and have a baby again. And this again is that like, this is that same thing. And I tell you what, I am a dyed-in-the-wool feminist. And I think feminism is all about choice. If you want to live on Mars and have no kids, do that. I don't want kids and I'm not having kids because I don't want to. If you want to quit your job and be a stay-at-home mom, a stay-at-home wife, and eat bonbons all day, or work really hard raising your kids, that's your choice. I think that's what it's about. I think the fallacy is in thinking that the thing that made you happy is what makes everybody happy. And I think the other fallacy with feminism is people think that empowerment looks like being, a top tier like CEO at a company and wearing power suits all the time. Yeah, it's like, it's just whatever it's
being whatever you want to be. Yeah. It's being whatever you want to be without people telling you what to do.
Yep.
It's the American dream. That's America in a nutshell. Doing whatever you want to do without people telling you what to do, and people tell you what to do and you get super pissed.
Yeah. I feel like white property owning men understood that 200 and something years ago. And women are just getting to that. Like we're just finally getting that choice in the last like 30 years.
For some reason, the Betazoid culture still holds on to that old school way of thinking. Like we've seen that before, at least in season 1. And I think it's supposed to be a reflection of the past, or I don't actually know what the impetus is for this type of writing, but unfortunately it gets so much worse. It gets so much worse throughout this episode. Yeah. But here it's like Lwaxana does really just want Troi to be happy. That's what she wants at the end of the day. And Troi is telling her, I am happy. I am happy. I am happy. The only thing making me unhappy is you constantly judging me and criticizing me and trying to force me to change. Yeah. That's actually what makes me unhappy. But doing what I do, being who I am, makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did love seeing Troi finally getting upset with her mom. She's like, Lwaxana constantly refers to her as little one, which I think is pretty cute. But Troy's like, little one, you have been calling me that since I was 5 years old. Like, stop infantilizing me. Stop seeing me as a baby, which I thought I really enjoyed seeing that on screen because everybody just acts so appropriate all the time that it's just not real. You have this mother who's just like nagging and on your case. And all you do is go, oh, mother. And that's it. Where it's like, no, you would rage at some point. Right. And like that, I think, Gene Roddenberry's all like, everybody's professional and gets along perfectly every time. Like that, it creates a sterility that doesn't feel real. So to have Troi lose her shit for a minute, I was like, there's a real person right there. There she is. So I did enjoy that. Now, the like really teeny tiny B plot to this is that Wesley has been admitted to Starfleet Academy pending his oral exam. He's passed his written exam. And everybody's like, hurrah, you're getting into Starfleet Academy finally, which I thought was really cool. But that is like a teensy-weensy little part that I must interject because it's kind of right in between these scenes.
That is the B plot. And it's actually pretty sweet. And I think I would have liked a little more of that storyline. So we're like in the ready room and we see both Picard and Riker drinking from the famous mugs. And I was like, oh, I didn't remember anybody but Picard drinking from these glass mugs. But they're drinking and talking to Wesley about, hey, all you have to do now is pass the oral exams. Like, we'll make sure that you're, you're ready or whatever. And so Wesley's like super excited because he's like, finally, I get to go to the academy like everybody else on this ship.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the people I work with every single day.
Yep.
Right. This is like a really hardworking 16-year-old. And he's like, I'll finally, earn my own commission, which whatever that means, since there's no money. But I'll earn my, rank, my status, like officially. It's just really beautiful. So I would have loved to have more of that during this episode. I wouldn't have minded having a Wesley episode, but actually like Wesley, that would have been better than this whole sex slave nonsense that was this episode.
Yep.
So I'm glad they at least put something in that wasn't awful, but like I still could go without this episode.
Yes. Now, while all this is happening, the Enterprise is going to go take off and like map the super fucking cool nebula for a while, but they're like, it's fairly routine. So number one, Troi had the good sense to ask for shore leave. So I see I'm going to have to like suggest this for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to, go to Beta Z. This is the only time in TNG, and I think maybe the only time in all of the Trek universe that you actually see Beta Z. We see some like flashbacks of it, but it's just little snippets of like this episode. It's a little clip showy type of thing. But this is the only time we see Beta Z. And
the only thing we see is a park in Beta Z. Now I wish we would have seen more.
Yes, which is actually the same park that Justice was filmed in.
Yeah, I mean, sets are sets, right? But it looked different. It looked very different.
It's actually it was filmed at the Huntington Library Botanical Gardens in Pasadena. So it's about, an hour away from like where they were filming in SoCal. So that's kind of cool. Where I was like, hey, it's Justice again, beautiful garden. Now, the first thing I notice and we see is that Riker and Troi are walking along and holding hands. Shereese, how many friends do you hold hands with? Because my answer was 0.
Yeah, mine is absolutely 0. It's absolute 0. So it's like negative 252 or whatever that is.
It's 0 Kelvin.
It's 0 Kelvin. Yeah. Which I don't even remember how much that negative 373.
I think it's
whatever that number is.
It's negative 273 degrees Celsius.
Okay, so I had it. I was
pulling that back out of my chemistry brain. All right, it's 0 Kelvin.
It's 0 Kelvin. Yeah. So and then
thank you.
So we've talked a lot about how they're friends with benefits and how we know they still hook up. And even though they're like, I wish the best for you. And, oh, you're getting married. That's great. And also we're sleeping together. So we've already talked about how like that's a thing. But here's where we get proof of it. Because the whole time we've just been like, I'm pretty sure they're just still sleeping together. And then here we see them like holding hands and a little later on making out. And you're like, yep, called it.
There it is.
And here's the thing. It wasn't the plan because Troi had requested shore leave and Riker did not. So Troi had some other plans on Beta Z.
Yep.
And then Riker came down and she was like, all right, or we could do this. Like, since you're here.
Yeah, my booty call is here.
Yeah, my booty call is here. That's nice.
Walk through the garden.
Yeah, 2 days, 2 solid days. So yeah, let's go quote unquote walk through the garden.
Riker's like, your feet are looking awfully dirty, Troi. Can I wash them for you? Now, the Huntington Library Botanical Gardens are huge, right? And we just are going to assume that in the entire planet of Beta Z, there is just about anywhere you could be. But Lwaxana decides to be walking by the exact same teeny tiny little patch of grass to set down a picnic. And I love that Riker and Troi are both like, because
it's very obvious she followed them. How did she follow them? Question mark. But it's very obvious.
But then like a minute later, she's like, this is a very romantic spot. Are you sure you don't want me to give you some space? What? Why did you interrupt me?
Because she brought the picnic. She brought everything. And she was like, oh, hey, guys, I thought you guys would like something to eat. Like she set up this whole thing. And then she's like, it's so romantic here. See you later. Like she's trying to make them hook up. But like they were hooking up just fine without like 2 seconds ago.
And I got to say, the Troi, Riker, Stan and me saw them kiss. And I went, yay! On-screen proof. Like I just was delighted. And that kiss lasted about 0.08 of a second. And then Lwaxana strode by in a dress that I was like, no, you missed the mark. The breast part of the dress didn't fit her well. Like it just, the whole thing felt really off to me. That was the one outfit. I was like, I don't love this. Now, during this picnic, Lwaxana offers some Swiss chard for Riker to munch on. And of course they call it some Beta Z alien name. And he takes a bite and he's like, kind of like when you take a bite of raw kale. You're like, delicious.
But then he says it's warm. And you're like, that's disgusting.
Nope.
That is disgusting.
Well, let me tell you.
But he's he ate gach. So like, what's this going to be?
You're good. Yeah, you can eat the warm Swiss chard. It's fine. Now, this episode we've already said is a D-. It could have been worse, Shereese. It could have been worse because Gene Roddenberry, as we know, is a sex creep. I'm just going to put it out there. And he's a
flower child. He's got a very
one person's flower child is another person's sex creep. Because let me tell you, he did a little rewrite on the script that thankfully everybody else had the good sense to be like, we're not doing that. Lwaxana was supposed to offer him from her hand to take a bite of this fruit that he described as cylindrical in shape and veiny. He wanted Riker to eat a dick on screen. No. And Lwaxana was supposed to be handing it, and he was supposed to take a bite at the top of it from her hand. Gene? What the fuck, sir?
I'm picturing that in my head. I'm just like picturing Jonathan Frakes, who plays Riker, being like, so wait a minute.
What you're saying is
hold on. So wait, why are we even eating in this scene? Like, we don't actually need food at this picnic.
And you know what? And Roddenberry would be like, great, let's get him a thermos of Earl Grey that's cylindrical in shape and veiny.
Oh my goodness.
So that would have been for me when I would have just quit TNG on the spot, just on the spot. Now,
well, I was so little, I wouldn't have noticed until I was an adult. And then I would have been like, I can't believe they showed that on television.
Yeah, no. Standards and practices would have been like, we need to call you into the office and tell you that we cannot, under any circumstances, just show this thing. Yeah, he said it was cylindrical in shape, have a large tip, and be veiny. So take from that what you will, listener, because I'm telling you, Riker was like, I'm not about to be eating a dick out of your hand, Majel Barrett. Sorry.
Well, I mean, that didn't happen. And we're very happy. But what did happen was like not that much better. So
yeah, he's eating this like warm Swiss chard.
Yeah. And so Lwaxana sends Mr. Holmes into the nearby woods or whatever to go pick some berries.
Yeah.
And while he's out picking Uda berries, Damon Togg shows up with this little like crappy bouquet in this beautiful botanic garden. So it looks extra crappy.
It's like you bought this bouquet and then you left it in the trunk of your car. And then you remembered about 6 months later that was in there.
Yeah. It's all brown and dried and dead. And so he's like, please, Lwaxana, join me or whatever. And she's just like, how many times do I have to tell you, get out of my life? We said that in a previous episode. And so he's just like, all right, she takes the flowers and throws it in the bushes or whatever. And he's like, okay, well, in that case, I'm just going to beam you all to my ship. So he kidnaps all of them. He puts them all in a holding cell. And then he beams out just Lwaxana and Troi and Deanna. And he beams them without their clothes on because in their words, females do not deserve the honor of clothing. Now, my first thought was, how on earth did they modify their transporters so that it transported the people, but not their clothes?
Yeah,
we have not seen that level of like skill or delicacy with transporters. They usually just snatch up everything within the beam.
Yeah,
so that was
everything in the beam. Everything in the beam gets snatched up. Yeah. Well, they are beamed away, and the three of them wake up in a holding cell, and the women are closed at first, but then they're like beamed into a different holding cell, and their dresses stay behind and collapse on the floor. And I was like, you're right. It's like, how did you just get the biological aspects? I don't know, but it was really cool. I mean, it was cool.
It was a very cool special effect, like very cool. And even having the dresses like still stand up as if people were in them and then collapse.
Yeah,
like,
that was
that
neat.
whole thing was super cool. Technologically speaking, like that looks super dope. And then wondering how the transporters could work, like that was cool. That's the extent of the coolness for the rest of the episode. Like that's it. That's it right
Might
there.
as well just hang it up for the day. That's it.
So they show up in this other holding cell and they're butt naked and they're like, oh my gosh. And so they grab up some like, I don't know,
towels,
blankets that happen to be laying by there.
Yep.
Yeah. And like just make some little like improvised new clothes. So what was even
also
the point of all
how many ships do you know have stacks of towels hanging around?
Or blankets or whatever the heck? None, zero.
They don't even have blankets on the fucking Enterprise. All you get is a little shitty sheet that Geordi lies on top of in his full uniform and shoes. Okay. There's just perfectly placed 2 towels or sheets or whatever these are.
I think there was like a stack there and she grabbed 2. But why was there a stack? Who knows? Maybe she got beamed near the shower. But when they get beamed in, and they're telling like females don't deserve the honor of clothing and blah, blah, blah. I was just like, again, this is like an incongruity. If we've got this alien species of Ferengi who think women are, garbage and, second-class citizens and belong underfoot and all this stuff, that's their cultural beliefs. And if that is their beliefs, they're going to be attracted to women who fit that belief. They're not going to be attracted to alpha females. Like, that doesn't make sense. They're not going to be attracted to women who are headstrong, independent, a freaking ambassador for their whole planet. Like, they're not going to be attracted to that type of woman at all because it doesn't fit in their worldview. This is the second time we've seen something like this on the show where it just doesn't match. You have someone saying like, this is what I think of women, or this is what I think of men, depending on the episode. But then they're attracted to something that's completely opposite of anything that they would think from growing up in that culture. So that was just really like, I don't understand it. So,
no, I really don't get it either. The only thing I might think is that it's just something very different, which can be exciting and interesting. Yeah, it can be interesting and exciting, but I feel like that only goes so far. But whatever. You know what? I think the answer, Shereese, is who fucking cares? This episode is so garbage. None of it makes any sense. None of it. The only part that makes sense is that Wesley got into Starfleet Academy. Okay.
Which is awesome. Yay, Wesley.
Sense. Yay. Pending an oral exam, which I was like, ooh, I don't do well with oral exams.
Yeah, but Wesley's going to crush it. Like,
he will.
It ends with the exam. He'll be fine. It ends with exam, quiz, assessment, test. Like, he'll be fine. All that. He writes those things for breakfast. Come on. He created freaking like a sentient technology from 2 nanites that he let escape. Like, he'll be good.
The man is fine. Yeah, he'll be all right. He's teaching at Starfleet Academy next year. Now, I mean, I'm not going to go beat by beat on what happens in the Ferengi ship because it's so stupid. But basically, Lwaxana tries to flirt her way out of danger. And I thought, 1, smart. 2, many women have been put in that situation, and you kind of have to just smile and flirt your way out of danger. And that's what Lwaxana is trying to do. And she's trying to work her magic, and she's massaging his ears, which just creeped me out so much.
And here's the problem with the massaging the ears is that she's just massaging his ears the way like a human would massage someone's head or hair, run your fingers through their hair or something that's kind of intimate, but also something you could do in public.
Yeah.
And turns out that rubbing his ears is the same as giving like a hand job, but for Ferengi. So she finds that out and he's like, oh, you give great, whatever he called it. And then he was like, I love how you rub my lobes or something like that. And so she realizes what she's doing. And then she keeps doing it.
Yeah.
Like,
I would have been like, my hand would have jumped back from those ears.
If you thought you were just like rubbing his hair, which is such a, like, it's intimate, but it's not like, you need the doors closed to do
private.
It's not private. It's not like, And this is like, and then you find out, no, this is like something super private you wouldn't do in public. Like, that just grossed me out to no extent. And then, that's exactly what she did. She flirted her way, tried to flirt out the communication codes from him, almost got them. But then Neelix came in and stopped her.
I was going to say Neelix did come in and got all Nazi doctor on her. It was like, we need to do experimentation.
And we'll figure out how her brain works, and then we'll just copy it with our technology.
Yeah, we'll just map the like telepathy part so we can still use that to turn a profit, but we don't need her. And Damon Tugg is like, but the machine might kill her. And Neelix is like, yeah, but I just caught you red-handed, almost giving her the access codes to the computer. So, you're going to lose your life.
I can report you to your boss and you will no longer have standing. You're going to lose your ship. I can take over the ship. So he kind of blackmails him, which, I mean, considering the fact that Togg's negotiation skills started with him pulling out a bed for Lwaxana to lay on, I feel no sympathy for him.
Yeah, I don't care. You're good. Yeah, you're good. Just whatever. Go back to being whatever the hell you were before you were a daemon. Yeah. So now she's trying to like tease out all these things. They strap her into this machine and start hurting her brain with lasers ? And at this point, Riker and Troi have like broken out of their holding cell
Riker broke out and Troi came along for the ride.
Yeah, she sure did, because Riker was space chessing his way out of there. Now, at this point, the Enterprise has been in this nebula for a while. Their communication is down because of the interference and static. Da, da, da. So finally, after a couple of days, they come out of this nebula. And finally, the main dude from Beta Z is like, oh, finally, we've been trying to get a message to you. Riker and Troi and Lwaxana have gone missing, but we don't care about her as much. But, Riker and Troi have gone missing. Poor Mr. Home comes back with these Uda berries and it's like, hello? Now, yeah, so they go back down to the Huntington Gardens on Beta Z and they find this bullshit Ferengi dried ass bouquet. And they're like, Ferengi. So now they know that the Ferengi are somehow involved. And Riker, now here's something I had a bone to pick. Riker has access to the computer panels because he's knocked out this Ferengi and he's like, beep, boop, beep, boop, pushing all these buttons. Now, he and Deanna are like, okay, clearly we can't get to like the communication system. So maybe there's like a smaller subsystem that's like a background system that we can access.
Yeah, because they couldn't get the security codes from Lwaxana because Neelix walked in.
Exactly.
Just in time.
Exactly. So Deanna and Riker are looking through, they're scrolling through the computer and they're like, this one right here. And it's all in Ferengi characters. I'm sorry, since when can we read Ferengi?
I don't know.
They always this one right here. Look at that one. I was like,
they always do that. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, we'll just like use the universal translator so that I can understand it. But
is it embedded in your eyes? Is it embedded in your eyeballs? I don't understand this. I was like, this is really okay.
I feel like what I've seen or what they're hinting at is that it's like all computers come with universal translators. So you can push like switch to English on the like on the keyboard or whatever, and then read it. But it's not like the words actually switch to English for the viewer. Everything looks exactly the same for the viewer. But the ship member, the crewmate, is always like, okay, here it is. And they can see it. So whatever. That's I was always like, the thing. That's always the thing.
I know that Troi moonlights as a linguistics coach, but come on now. I was like, this is a little ridiculous. Anyway, but they end up sending out this little like static signal. And it's part of like the warp, the warp residue leaves. It's kind of like it's like smog that comes out of your car or like carbon monoxide that comes out of your car. It's just a byproduct of warp travel. And he's like, I'm going to send out a pattern and hopefully this will work. Now, the Enterprise, of course, is like bump, trying to find them and can't find them anywhere because the Ferengi ship, we now know, can travel almost as fast as the Enterprise can. So warp 9-ish at least. So they could be anywhere.
And also, we learned when we first met the Ferengi in season 1 that their technology is equivalent to Enterprise, to Starfleet technology. Yes. The ship's the same as the Enterprise. It's just as fast. It's just as maneuverable. It's got the same amount of armaments. The weapons level's the same. So it's not somebody that they're going to be able to just like pick a fight with.
Yes.
Which is kind of nice. It's kind of nice that they just can't come in and be like, give them back or we'll blow you out of the sky. They have to be like, they have to kind of think a little bit more about that. But because the ship is equivalent, it could be anywhere. It could have warped anywhere. But Picard says, well, Riker's on board, so he's going to find a way to like slow the ship down and send us a message. Like let's just assume that they're trying to escape.
Yes, we're just going to have to assume that. And finally, Wesley of all people is getting ready to beam off the ship because he's got to go, do his oral exam for Starfleet. And this ship is like standing by. They're like, hello, we can't wait much longer.
Like, see, this is what I had the bone to pick with. Again, they're shuttling Wesley off. And I get that this shuttle was on its way to wherever he needs to take the test anyways. And they were just going to take him with them. But at the same time, wherever they were going on the shuttle, the Enterprise could get there in like 2 seconds. And I get that the Enterprise is not going to move the entire ship for this little boy.
Oh, I don't think it was a shuttle because they were calling it the Bradbury. Like I think it's a whole ship.
Is it? Because I thought they said it was a shuttle.
No, I think it was a ship. But even then I was like, the Bradbury can take off even if they're going like warp 5. You can still beam when you're at warp. Like you can just beam him in like 20 minutes from now instead of right this minute. Yeah,
but I don't know. This added some good drama, I guess.
Yeah. So he's getting ready to beam off and he's on the transport pad. He's already hugged his mom goodbye. She's giving him his little cool ass looking lunchbox that has the Starfleet logo on it. And he's like, wait, a pattern, and runs off, as everybody does in minute 48 of a drama. They figured it out, but they don't want to tell us what it is. So they're like, a pattern, and they run off. And turns out that Wesley was able to detect, and I call bullshit on this, he was able to detect this pattern in static. And actually, it wasn't even a pattern. It was the gaps between the pattern. That was the signal. Come on now.
He picked it out with his ears and Data didn't. And I was like,
no, I'm going to say false. Yes. It was the same nondescript song that this guy was playing at the closing ceremony. It was like some ceremonial music or something.
At the beginning of the episode.
At the very beginning, right? And he's like, that's it. Triangulate. Yes. Data didn't notice it. Come on. Anyway, whatever. Again, the answer is who fucking cares? Now, they zip on over, they find the ship, they contact the Ferengi, and at this point, Lwaxana has made a deal to get Deanna and Riker off the ship, and she's like, I will stay with you willingly if you let them go. So, out of the blue, Deanna and Riker are beamed right onto the bridge, and they get Damon Tog on screen, and Lwaxana is playing this like, it's too late, Picard. I'm his now, and you can never have me again. And I don't know how, but of course, Deanna's like, I think I know what she's trying to do. You have to fight for her. And this is a pretty fun scene where Picard starts spouting off a shit ton of Shakespeare. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. All this stuff.
And I love how Lwaxana is just like, oh, come on, Picard. You can't keep killing off all my lovers. And Damon Tog is like, wait, what now? He did what to who now? Like, oh, yes. He just can never get enough. Anyways, like, I love how she just kept dropping these like threats.
Yeah.
So casually. Like,
she's like, it can't continue. I mean, how many of my lovers can you kill? This just can't go on anymore. And he's like, if I can't have you, no one will. Like, Mr. Worf set phasers to blah, And of course, Tog is like, wait a minute. Can't we talk? And I love that Picard is like 10, 9, 8. Like, he's not having it. This is not Captain Picard. This is Patrick Stewart right here. This is Patrick Stewart. I was like, oh, look at this. Now, of course, all's well that ends well. Damon Tog beams her onto the bridge
with like 1 second to spare.
With 1 second to spare and beats a hasty ass retreat. And of course, Lwaxana's like, oh, Jean-Luc, I knew you cared, or some shit like that, and goes and sits on his lap, and he cannot get her off his lap fast enough. And he's like, Mr. Crusher, set course for Beta Z warp 9.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. He's like, get us to that planet as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Go now. Like, get this woman off our ship. Yeah. So that wraps up that whole storyline, and who cares? Well, anyways, in the ready room later on, Wesley's talking to Picard, and, it's clear that Wesley's missed his oral exams at this point. So we find out he's got to wait a whole nother year before applying again. And this is like his second or third time waiting a year to apply again. And you're like, oh, poor kid. Right. And then you're just like, he's never gonna actually go to the academy. But what's interesting is there's this little scene we skipped earlier between Wesley, Data, and Geordi when they're in engineering trying to figure out whatever. And Data says something like, yeah, after you finish the academy, you probably are not going to come back to the Enterprise, because it's very unlikely that some fresh ensign right out of the academy is ever going to be placed on the flagship. And he was like, I didn't think about that. And Geordi's just like, oh yeah, definitely. Like, you're going to leave home and like go be on all these other ships. And Wesley's just like, wait a minute. Like, I thought I was just going to get, my commission and coming straight back here. There was nothing in my mind about going to different ships and really going to live my own life.
Yeah.
So I think part of him really didn't want to go and was happy to stay and find the random pattern between the pattern or whatever, because he didn't want to leave his family. He's still pretty young. And also he's doing the exact work that he's going to the academy to someday be able to do. He's doing it right now.
Yeah.
So it's like apprenticeship, right? When somebody knows how to like build cars or whatever, they don't need to go to school to learn how to build cars, because they've learned it at home, like, for all these years. It's kind of like that. So you're like, he'd have to go to school to learn the stuff that he already knows to not even be able to come back. So he really didn't want to go. So waiting another year is like, okay.
I agree. Because Data said like 90-something% of, Starfleet graduates don't get posted to the Enterprise, because obviously it's a flagship. Why would you be getting like the first, the freshmen basically? And Geordi's like, well, I'm sure Picard will like request you specifically.
But that's
that is if he's still captain of the Enterprise by the time you graduate. Yeah. And Wesley was like, I didn't think of that. Oh, I didn't think of that. Oh, damn, I didn't think of that. Yeah, like you would be on the Cerritos somewhere in the lower decks, hanging out with the animated crew.
I hope they put Wesley on that show.
That would be really fun. I mean, all you need is his voice, and he has the same voice, so that's pretty fun.
He's never going to do it though, probably. Will Wheaton is a part of the Trek franchise as like a podcaster.
Yes.
He has not reprised his role, and I feel like he doesn't want to, but like, oh, I would love it.
But well, you know what? I would still love to see him as ensign. He's going to be like 43 years old as an ensign.
And it's going to be him and Harry Kim just like drinking in 10 Forward, just like down in Synth Hall, double fisting. Why are we still ensigns after 45 years?
Yeah. You keep getting promoted and then demoted. Now, Captain Picard does make a field promotion for Wesley to be a full ensign, not just an acting. He gets the Starfleet uniform. This is the first time he's wearing his Starfleet uniform. Oh my God. I was like, there he is.
That was literally the best scene of the entire episode. Wesley comes out in his crisp uniform, rocking the red. His rainbow sweaters are gone with the ensign pip, and he sits down and you're just like, and Beverly's there just smiling. And that was great. That was wonderful.
Yes, it was really cute. Now, I did say, and I stand by this, that Gene Roddenberry is a sex creep. And he also seemed like a really sweet guy too, because he had a whole ceremony and presented Will Wheaton with his real ensign bars that he had earned in the Navy 40 years before.
Oh, wow.
Which I was like, whoa, you don't just give that away. Final thoughts, Shereese?
Yeah, my final thoughts were, let's please never watch this episode again. That's what I have in my notes. What about you?
Agreed. It was fun to watch this just to do the teardown, but it was not fun to watch this if you just want to watch an episode. Give this one was a hard pass. We are back to like the first 10 episodes of season 1. Mm-hmm. Things are misogynistic AF. Things are super fucking racist. Things are incongruous.
Yeah, don't watch it. But you know what you should watch? You should turn on the episode and go all the way to the end just to see Wesley coming out with his uniform. It's so satisfying. And then move to the next episode immediately, because the next episode is really good.
Yes. Now, if you're not a Wesley fan, then there is literally nothing for you in this episode.
There's nothing. No.
I was so glad when this was over. Well, next week gets so much better. And then the week after that, Shereese, gets like explosively 10 quadrillion times better. So stay tuned. Next week, we are talking season 3, episode 25, Transfigurations.
Thanks for joining us. Give this episode a skip, and we'll see you next week for a really awesome episode.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.